Blunt Cuts is a podcast fueled by creativity, curiosity, and empowerment.
We cut through the daily mess of life. This is unfiltered honesty.
Park your passive at the door. This is Blunt Cuts. Welcome to Blunt Cuts. I'm CJ, and please welcome to the studio Serena Fallahi Tittl. And she is the founder of Collective Market. It's a pop-up shop redefining sustainable style. Welcome, Serena.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here.
We are so excited to have you. And we know Fashion Revolution Week just kind of kicked off and took off in a big way here locally in Minneapolis. But I have been a follower of your brand for a while and just love the idea of what you do. So tell people a little bit about you personally, and then kind of why you started this wonderful business.
Awesome. Yes. So my background is in apparel design. So from like the moment I could breathe, I realized like I wanted to be a designer, and I followed that through schooling, through the early parts of my career, and then got into the industry. Realized that maybe my idea of what I thought I'd be doing as a designer, what I was actually doing as a designer, was a little bit different. So I stayed in the retail industry and fashion specifically, took some different roles, continued to work through it, and then ultimately I think got a little burned out. There was still this passion for style and creating, but then realizing that the industry behind it was really non-sustainable. And as far as someone who's working with it, it was exhausting. So I left the industry for a little bit, and during that time kind of found my way back as Collective Market with a passion project. So behind, there's always a need and love for great style and finding great pieces, but it just felt like there's so many better ways to do that than just continuing to go buy new. And especially with the onset of fast fashion, there's got to be, I hated the quality I was getting, even though if the style was what I was looking for.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think that as somebody who was in fashion, left, ran away, and said, I will never be back, and coming in through a passion project, you have a different light because you're coming in with a voice and a space that the industry kind of needs.
100%. I mean, I saw firsthand a lot of the struggles of it, but then coming back on my own terms was my way to redefine it for me and rekindle that passion of why I wanted to be involved in that industry in the first place. And, I'm sure this might be similar for you, but having friends that were also in the industry, like I had such better luck going through my friends' closets than I did going to stores. And I'm guilty of this too, but I wear something a couple times. And especially if it's at events, I was kind of like, okay, I got my use out of it. And those are the pieces that I would try to swap with friends. It just became difficult as we were moving around. And it was like, why can't we open this up to like a larger scale? So it's like everyone pools their closets locally, and then we can just go off of that.
It's such a fantastic idea. And that's where Collective Market really came from, was 100%. This idea. And from me, like I always wanted those girlfriends to switch clothes with. And like I ended up having like a lot of dude friends or women that were just like way not into like the fashion that I was into. So I never like found that community, at least in like college or, and then I just was traveling a lot. So I kind of lived out of a suitcase and then started styling and of course collected an abundance in which now I'm covered in all million clothes. So I need things like you and closet swaps to kind of rebirth some things for my end too.
Yeah, and those were some of my struggles too. I had left Minneapolis for 10 years, and I came back a few years ago. And it was like, okay, a lot of my friends are male or like in healthcare or not, like a wide variety of industries, so that they didn't have the same kind of desire I was looking for. And then the flip side of it is we had different styles, we have different sizes, and it just became like, even if we pool all of us together, I mean, we can share maybe shoes and accessories, but the sizing availability wasn't there.
Yeah, that's the part that I'm so intrigued by. And I think I'm just so curious with how you launched this and came up with this idea, but then how you really do make it work from a logistical standpoint, so you don't end up having a collective sale where everything is like one size.
Yes. I mean, it's definitely a challenge. So just for people who are unfamiliar, the basis is that it's anyone can sell items from their closet, and then you just, to kind of regulate it, we monetize it. So you set your own price of how much you want to sell it for, and then I have this online system. It creates a hang tag for you, and then you drop it off. And then at that point of drop off is when we'll go through it and make sure that, you know, condition is good, style is appropriate. And then, but the risk I run sometimes is that, like, up until the day before we might open that pop-up shop is, I don't know.
You don't know what sizes are going to be in the door.
And that's why we really have, I mean, the nice thing is we've done 3 events thus far, and they've continued to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's helped with sizing. But that's one thing I keep getting feedback on. But that, you know, when someone be like, "Hey, I don't see a lot of my sizes," they're the first person I'll say, "Awesome,
bring your closet. Yes, come to the next step with your pieces."
We definitely want more size inclusivity, and we don't want this to be like, you know, one size is the only option we have. So, but it is a struggle, because it's not like I'm a retail buyer who goes, okay, I want 3 smalls, 3 mediums, 2 larges. You know, I can't do that with this type of structure, but.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, and I know being a fashion stylist and mostly working with editorial girls who are going out of this market or in other markets, working with New York agencies, working with European agencies, like all of my stuff is model sized, it's sample sized, it's 0 or smaller. Right. So I've tried to do like pop-up sales, and, you know, people come in, and then I'm like, oh God, I'm such an asshole, because like a medium feels like it just makes people feel like shit. And I'm like, oh great, this was not my intention of opening up my closet to the world. So I realized that I had a very specific set of stuff that would maybe work in a market where there's a lot of different people coming, and then, you know, that would be more appropriate than kind of opening up to my friend circle, because I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm making my friends feel bad when they come over and they love something and then it doesn't fit, only because I had it for like these European models that
are like 90 pounds soaking wet and 6.5 feet.
Yeah, exactly. So the industry we all know and love and are working on. So but yes, that's the majority of my styling closet. So that's my curiosity, was just really like sizing and how we do that, and make sure that there's availability for all.
Yeah, and the scale that like Collective Market is working on is different than like if you wanted to set up your own closet swap, but it's still going to have the same premise of just like cast a really wide net, like invite 10 friends, even if you're not that close with them, and then say, hey, everyone that I just invited, bring someone else, and like extend it. I mean,
I love that idea. So we talked about Collective Market a little bit and kind of how your process works, but you're talking about setting up your own closet swap with a small group of women that are in your circle, and be mindful of like size varieties, and, you know, let people know, hey, like here's who's coming, here's like, right? Are some of those tips really good to like let people know, hey, here's what's coming, but reach out to your friends? Yeah,
I mean, if you set it up on like something like Facebook, then you obviously can see like a photo, I guess, of the people that are invited. But the other piece of it too, and I tell people this at Collective Market, is that a lot of times I've worked on the fit side of design for a long time, and I can tell you like a small from brand to brand to brand, there's such a it's very subjective.
That's such a good point. I think that you have to just not look at the tags. Right?
Exactly.
Like you have
That's the first thing I'll tell people. Like, if you like it, hold it up. And if it seems close, I don't care, try it on. Because you would be so surprised, I mean, the range of sizes you can fit depending on the brand. So don't get locked into a number. Like, that's when I feel like people go, oh, well, no, I can't go beyond this, because they think it's this negative connotation. It's like, no. That's just an arbitrary
and we just
number.
like would laugh at it when people are at my studio trying on stuff and like, I can't get out of this one, help me. Like, you just make it laughable, because you know it's like, okay, some things are gonna work and some things aren't, you know.
Absolutely.
So but it's important to note that like tags and sizing in our modern fast fashion world mean absolutely nothing.
Exactly. So having that kind of open mind probably will help too, because then you can just find pieces and go, you know what, I'll just try it, I don't care about the size.
Well, and thrifting too, like I will look for fabrics when I'm thrifting and I'm going through, and there are a lot of things that I have that, I mean, I'm a little bit of a smaller frame, but I have like extra larges and sometimes like even bigger, that I love the oversized look. And like it works really well, because I like to be like cozy and comfortable and not super form fitting all the time. Like there are those days, but Most of the time I really like oversized. So it's fun to just play if you find the right color and fabric to not get wrapped up in like what size am I, because it's really hard right now to figure out what size you really are.
It is. And like
unless somebody is making something for you and they're taking
exactly.
your actual measurements,
it.
That's different. But
even if you love a good brand, like, I mean, to your reference of like liking oversized, so maybe one season, you know, that's just a silhouette that brand that, you know, you've always been, we'll say a medium, but then that season they want to go everything kind of oversized because that's a silhouette they're going for. Well, you don't care for it, so now you've sized down to a small, or vice versa. Like, it's so fluid, and I think people get locked into like number or whatever that tag says. It's like, no, you wear it how, and don't pay attention to that. And then with that, like, if you have so many people that maybe aren't normally the style that you go for, that's kind of the fun part of a swap, is that you get to take risks that you wouldn't normally take because you didn't really invest. You know, you're not spending a ton of money on something that's so out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, so in a swap, you would bring your stuff, and then you would just say, okay, like, I brought stuff, you brought stuff, everybody just takes stuff home. Like, is that how they would traditionally would work? I've never been to one. I've never had one. I'm so intrigued.
So you can lay some ground rules, and usually they're very, I think about keeping them really basic.
Love it. Simple, the better.
Yeah. But it's basically like, if you're going to come, just bring something to swap. Like, bring some pieces to swap. And some people will bring a ton, some people will bring a few. But as long as you know that it's like you're bringing some and then you can take some back, it's a little more of an even exchange. And then, you know, a swap is like, if you're going to bring it that potentially your girlfriend's going to wear it, I think that in your head tells you the quality or the type of clothes, the shape that you would bring them.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. Like, in that idea of, Michaela and I were discussing this a little bit earlier this morning, and that idea of like, I'm worried if my stuff isn't good enough for my friends, you know, or like, if I'm getting rid of it, does that mean that they would want it? Or that idea of someone else's trash is someone else's treasure. Like, what mindset? Or like, do I feel bad because I'm bringing something I don't want anymore? And like,
true. I mean, there's definitely, I could see where that is definitely on people's
just that internal monologue of like,
right? But I think we get a little like lost in our own heads on that. And I mean, so many people, I think a lot of the success I've had with Collective Market is people are like, a lot of, you know, bloggers and Instagrammers wear it once or twice. And they're like, well, I've already been photographed a couple times in this. I'm not going to wear this piece again. That piece is like still brand new.
Yeah, I know, absolutely.
It's changing that frame set of like, instead of trash, it's just something that served its purpose for me, and that was temporary, and now it's going to go live another life. And kind of reframing how we look at it.
Well, I think back to a story I was in. I don't know, I was in some sort of like shopping mall center place, and I had on my Fry boots. So I have Fry boots that I've actually taken riding in Montana. They're just a hot mess. Like, they literally probably have poo on them. But like, they're all like scuffed up, and I love them. And like, you know, when I first got them, it was like keeping them all, like buffing them, shining them. Now they're just like, to me, wonderfully broken in, but like a little bit of a hot mess. Well, I had someone stop me and say, oh my gosh, are those the season? Where did you get them? How are they so distressed? That's what I love, the boot shape and style, but I don't like that they're not distressed. And it was a laughable moment for me because I was like, these are literally barn shoes and you love them. And so that idea of like, treasures to all.
Exactly.
So yeah, those boots were someone else's like treasure in their mind. And I mean, they're my treasure too, but to me, they're beat up, and I would never think to bring them to a swap. So I think that idea of if something's damaged, you know it's damaged, then that's a different story. But if something just has like some extra love and is worn in, like a great leather jacket or different pieces, like sometimes denim, like especially. Denim sometimes rips and tears and wears are like what people are looking for in like that sort of material. So let's talk a little bit about, for the newbies like me, or if you're wanting to start small with your circle of a closet swap, like what are those essentials you need to have, like
just to get
it off the ground? Like, is it probably better for things to be hanging, or
you know, I think it's better hanging because I think you can see it better. But if you don't have the space, you don't have the space, and then you just use tables. I was at a friend's house and we literally took over her living room. She had one hanging rack, and we were able to get a bunch of dresses on there. Everything else was like piles on her couch, on the chair, any space that had some sort of flat surface.
Love it.
That's what we used. And decent light. I mean, that you got to be able to see it. And then mirrors. If you can get some mirrors, extra mirrors brought in or just brought downstairs, that always helps.
Perfect. And sometimes, like, if you just tell your guests, right, like if people have mirrors at home, they could just bring one or whatever,
Exactly.
you know.
Exactly. And I mean, most of the time it's held in someone's house. So you have a bathroom to try things on. But like if I go, I just wear a cami and maybe leggings.
Oh, that's a good point. So, like, wear something that you're comfortable, like, trying stuff on.
Exactly.
And, like be prepared to take the risks and the fun with, like, your friends' other fashion. So.
Well, and like if you have this environment of fun, even if it's people you're not totally aware of, it can be a really fun environment, but just...
And I would imagine cocktails are essential. I mean,
yeah.
maybe optional, but pretty much essential.
The ones I put on, it's usually wine is like a bottle of wine with whatever you're swapping.
Perfect. Yes. Bring wine and an appetizer. And the stylist in me says bring a couple different kinds of bras maybe so you can try things on with like a strapless or...
I kind of just go with the strapless.
Yeah.
Again, yeah, same thing.
Yeah,
Otherwise you want to make sure, like, especially summer stuff, like,
yeah,
you want it to be cute.
Right? No, it just helps you see and visualize the picture if you like have those nude undergarments, so you're good to go. But that's just the stylist in me with all of my rules. Well, fun. I think that this is a fabulous idea, but can you talk a little bit about how this pairs into the sustainability movement? I think you had some really interesting facts about just like a closet swap with your friends and the impact that can make.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's... sustainability, there's so many ways you can slice it, right? So I look at sustainability in a few different views. One of them is like sustainable to your own wallet. That's a given. You know, when you're just exchanging pieces, you're getting all new pieces in your closet and you didn't invest anything else.
Yeah, you've already made that investment once, right?
Right, absolutely. But then part of that is unintentional benefit. It's sustainable, more sustainable for the environment. We're having these pieces that instead of buying brand new that are requiring new resources, you're using the ones that are already existing. And, you know, everyone is talking about sustainability. Yes, there are fantastic brands, and fast fashion certainly has its impact. But that doesn't mean people aren't going to buy a T-shirt from Target. Yeah. So the best thing you can do is then make sure that if you're buying that T-shirt from Target, that you're using it. And if you're not, let someone else be using it, rather than wear it once and then it falls apart. Because it may not. I have some pieces, like I think this morning I was wearing a fleece Target sweatshirt that I had 10 years ago.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily a like non-durable thing.
Yeah.
And sometimes those fast fashion fabrics can last for a long time, which means that they like stay in landfills for a very long time too. So
yeah, and just continue to use them and wear them. And usually you can tell, like the minute you pick up something, you can tell like by the weight and the hand feel how well it's really going to hold up, and go with that.
Yeah.
And then the other piece of sustainability I think about too is the people that are making these clothes. And being a little biased and being on the product development side for multiple different retailers, when I look at someone like a Target or a Kohl's, they have a lot invested in sustainable practices for corporate social responsibility. So meaning, like, I think about intent.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. If Target or Kohl's gets caught with a child labor law, that has huge implications for them. So therefore, and I know this personally, they have extensive resources dedicated to ensuring the people that are working for them. So versus these unknown brands.
Yeah. No, that's really good to hear. That's good to hear that there is this.
Yeah, these unknown brands that have like no accountability, that's where you see a lot of those flagrant labor violations. So just being mindful. And I think it comes back down to when you're buying something, think about, do you really love it? Do you really need it? Mm-hmm. And that right there can really solve a lot of your purchases of like, wait, do I really love it? Or is it just kind of like a meh right now?
Yeah, no, I mean, and there are those unicorn pieces that I'm like, oh, I don't need it. And then I think about it and think about it and think about it.
And then it's like, well,
and then I'm like, okay.
Joy. So that's
like, yeah, and then I'm like, did I just make it up in my head that it's this great? What if I got it and it isn't that great? So, this internal dialogue I have a lot with myself. But I do think that the focus of like who makes our clothes isn't really out there as much as it could be, and I know that you're working to do that, and Fashion Revolution Group is really working to do that. But ultimately, that's changing my mindset. Is really the women behind these things that I'm buying. There are people making these clothes, so let's make sure to not over and use and abuse our privilege of just being able to buy.
Yeah, absolutely. Making sure that people are getting livable wages wherever they are.
Yeah, and this closet swap is just such a cool way to do it in a really tangible, and budget friendly way. Versus, there's some really great brands that have very expensive per piece costs, but they're doing awesome things and will take your things back or re-alter it into something else, and that's fabulous if you have the means to do that.
Right. But realistically, that can't be.
It's not everyone.
It's not everyone, and it's certainly not every piece in your wardrobe. At least not for me. Just approaching sustainability in its little bits. I think when we think, how do I be more sustainable? It's this grand overarching thing, and then it becomes so overwhelming because then you start to see every little thing, and then you're like, it's almost, for me, at times it was immobilizing. I don't even know how, it's so big, I don't even know where to begin.
I think for a lot of people, and that's where these small steps and ideas and fun, how fun to have your friends together and share clothing and start over fresh.
Yeah, you could go out, you could have appetizers and drinks at a restaurant, then you think about how much you spend versus, hey, show up with a bottle of wine, a block of cheese,
and bring your clothes.
And guess what? We get a new wardrobe out of it.
No, that's so fun. And I know I have those pieces I'm coveting from friends that I'm put me on that list.
Yes,
I need that.
I've certainly done that too. Whenever you're done with that,
can I spit on it now? Does it count if it's mine? Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. This was such a treat.
Do you have a lesson learned that you can kind of share with our listeners on what you've kind of learned by doing this and starting this?
Yeah, I think to probably what I was just alluding to is just start small. Starting is the first step. It doesn't have to be a grand movement. Looking up some of the research behind how much water is needed for denim. If every person in Minneapolis swapped out one pair of jeans with a used pair instead of a brand new, it could save over 800,000 gallons of water.
That's insane.
Right? But it's
oh my God.
But that sounds so big because it's a grand scale. But really all I'm saying is one person swap out a pair of jeans instead of buying brand new, find one that's pre-loved.
Yeah, and pre-loved jeans probably feel and fit better anyway.
There's
no one
far
loves
less
breaking
shrinkage.
in jeans.
Exactly. They're already shrunken. You know how they're going to fit. And they're a lot softer. But that simple act of just doing one thing multiplied across a city has a huge impact. So
Absolutely love that. Well, where can people find you?
You can find me at collective.market.mpls on Instagram and Facebook.
Awesome. Well, let's continue this conversation on Instagram at Blunt Cuts Podcast.